Hello and welcome to our open mic about startup hacks using GPT in Serial Entrepreneur Secrets Revealed here in Startup Club on Clubhouse. Let me pin the link to the room and we'll be getting started in just a few moments. www.startup.club. There we go. Yeah, the link. Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
There you go. Welcome, everybody. People are starting to flow into the room. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. What are we going to talk about today, Michelle?
We are going to talk about a subject very near and dear to our heart, which is about startup hacks using ChatGPT. So a lot of us have really been experimenting using it in our business for different efficiencies as well as thinking about business ideas. So we're going to dive into the topic. This is an open mic session. So please do raise your hand and we'll bring you up onto the stage as we start this conversation. It'd be great if we could get some good hacks for everybody, and it will be also reflected in our blog posts and on our podcasts. Serial Entrepreneur is here every week on Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and then published onto your popular podcast networks. So, Jeff, without that, I think you and I could just kick it off and everybody start raising your hand and we're going to start bringing you up. Thank you.
Great. So, yeah, we're going to talk about ways to use ChatGPT to really hack and grow your business. And it's really interesting. People are getting more and more sophisticated at the prompting, right? And actually, we were talking about it the other day here in the office. There's a new job description. You'll see people listing job openings for someone called a prompt engineer. And I've also heard people use the term prompt artist. So when it comes to using AI tools to create art like Stable Diffusion or DALL-E, really the creative art is in choosing the right prompts and knowing what to say to the AI engine to get the desired results. And with that in mind, one hack that I'll share, Michelle, and then I'll let you share a hack and we could start bringing some people up on stage to share theirs, is ChatGPT apparently is very good at role playing. And what I mean by that is instead of just asking it a particular question, first put it into the role of the person who would be answering the question. So, for example, I'm the CMO of .art domain, so I'm a CMO. So, if I wanted to ask ChatGPT to do something that's going to help me accelerate something I'm working on, instead of just asking it the question, I'll say, imagine you're the CMO of a company, or maybe I'll even be more specific and say, imagine you're the CMO of my company. Um, then ask the question, how would you do this if you were already the CMO? And I've seen others do similar things with engineering questions, so, or a project manager. So instead of just asking the question, first say to ChatGPT, imagine you are the project manager for, a new mobile app that's being created. What would you do in this situation? And then give them the prompt. So ask GPT-3 or ChatGPT, excuse me, ask it to play a role first and then answer your prompt from the point of view of the role you've asked it to play. So that's a hack I've seen work really well. Michelle?
Yes, I found out the same thing. It's so funny. I think we kind of went about this path separately. Um, so, what I have found, just like Jeff said, is I have actually been using ChatGPT for a new e-commerce website that we were building. I had the painful task for me was to build, all the content on the site. So I've actually been using the role saying, write a product description as an SEO expert or write a title tag. I even had it do a SEO title tag using, and then of course I briefly described what the business was. And I'm going to say, Jeff, like both of them, I think it came back with what copy that was better than what I would have done. Certainly, it would have taken me days. It did in seconds. But one thing I will caution everybody about, and I'm sure everybody in this room knows this already, but just be real careful to read it, because there can be some slight nuances in what you're trying to say, and it could come out inaccurate. So that's my the big hack that I used it for this week. I probably spent about at least 8 hours, and it probably saved me, gosh, 5 times that amount of time. If I was trying to do it myself.
Yeah, I mean, your advice to read the output before using it is important. And I'd add to that, I'd say it's important not only to read it, but also to modify it somewhat, to add some things to it, to personalize it, because number one, people will start using AI detectors and we'll be able to know if you're just cutting and pasting things straight from the AI. And number two, the search wars are underway. Google versus Microsoft is at high alert right now, with Microsoft announcing the introduction of its ChatGPT powered Bing search and working ChatGPT into the Edge browser and many other things. And Google, of course, announcing its competitive product, which they're calling Bard. So it's highly likely that just as Google will currently penalize you if you have duplicate copy on websites. You don't get the same SEO juice if you're just cutting and pasting copy from one website to another. It's highly likely that Google will start penalizing search results if it's purely AI generated content, especially if it's AI generated content that hasn't been generated by their particular AI. So I'd be cautious about just cutting and pasting the output of the AI engine directly, and I take advantage of the opportunity to use it for efficiency and time savings and idea generation, and then modifying it, use it as a jumping off point, and then personalize it with your own content as well. It's still a great time saver, and it's still great for just sort of generating ideas for lots of different things.
All right, awesome. So yeah, you bring up something that I've been wondering a lot about, and I hope some folks here or some of our members know. But I have seen that there are companies starting to, generate, or should I say, maybe generate's not the right word, but to release some, software websites where you can actually put your AI generated copy into, and it kind of ranks it and says, does it look like it was a human generated copy or AI? So I thought that was really interesting, and I'm really like, I have no idea like how they would even know that. Um, but I'm interested if anybody here in the room or on the stage knows, like, how would like Google or even Bing or anybody else know that it was AI generated? I do see there are tools coming out for that. And obviously, one that was really of concern to me is I obviously don't want to plagiarize anything. And there's some cool plagiarism software that you can run your copy through too. I don't know, like Priscilla, you're up here on
Hey.
the stage. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Michelle, Jeffrey, and all my friends. So glad to be here, sharing and just providing value. So I do want to say there is a way, right? In the back end with the code, it's a logging system, very similar to log stamps, right? But it's a logging method that is used. So it's because of that they're able to detect AI. Priscilla pausing.
So are you saying, I just want to make sure I understand you correctly, there's some huge log out there in a database that they can check and be like,
It's
yep,
a file.
Michelle generated all this
Yep,
copy from
it's
AI.
a file that is composed of code and then it logs everything. Just like there's a file that does techniques for time stamping and logging, like your log stamps.
Yeah.
This is developer lingo,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's the best way I can explain it. Priscilla pausing.
All right. Interesting. Wow. But just does anybody know or think that Google is penalizing some of us that are using AI for copy?
I think it's possible. There's that platform.openai.com that can give you that sentiment analysis of AI generated content as well. So that's a tool that could be used. But yeah, I think so. I mean, they said they were going to do it. So I do think so. Priscilla, pausing.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. I don't know why they want to penalize us, but all right. So now I'm like, oh gosh, I better go and check my copy. I don't want to be penalized, right, Jeff? You and I both do a lot of marketing and copy. Something for us to think about.
Yep, I think it's definitely a consideration. And again, the other neat thing they did with ChatGPT is it is persistent, so it remembers what it's done for you, which gives you the real opportunity to keep refining, keep revising. You know, we're not always used to revising things so much because it gets to be a pain in the neck after a while. But in the case of the AI, it doesn't care. So get a first draft, then you might say, okay, can you rewrite it and make it sound more personable? Or can you rewrite it and make it a little bit funny? Or can you rewrite it and make sure to include some actual quotes from such and such source, et cetera? So there's no problem with constantly revising something until you get it just the way you want it. The AI is very good at that, and it's very fast, and it remembers what you have. So you can say, okay, can you rewrite it, but don't forget to add these two additional points, and it'll do that right away. So the fact that it's persistent makes it a lot easier than traditional search would be, where you just can't continue the thought you had with ChatGPT. You can just continue down the same line, for a number of queries back and forth, which is really cool.
Yeah, it is. And for me, one thing, I've been doing is I've actually been putting what I put as the prompt query and the return response in a Word document, because I am kind of tweaking it. It's just depends. So, that sounds like something I better look out for. So thank you already. I got a really good bit of advice here. So we have a couple of other folks up here on the stage with us. So let's go ahead and get your question, your hack, your suggestion for our members. So, Chaya, what is your suggestion or what is your hack for the fellow entrepreneurs here on this show? Chaya, your mute is in the bottom right hand corner if you're there. We can't hear you. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I
No,
was
no, no
talking
problem at
upon.
all.
I was literally talking upon mute. So I am with Jeffrey. I am my daily use to hack on Chat GPT. I am continuously using it in my basically I'm a developer. I am acting as a managerial role, leadership roles in my product ownership. So and I'm using it for code review. You won't believe it always gives you the standard code to replace with in the review, and mostly on a quick way I use it for moms. I roughly note things and I just throw it to GPT, and it gives you the real right way of implementing moms, and given you can just paste it on your mails and just share it with your team members right away. So it helps me a lot in mostly in code reviews and mostly in planning of my product deliveries and other things. So it's really very good. And I'm with Jeffrey. He's saying that you can refine it, regenerating. You can regenerate just to get the good stuff until you got. So yeah, that's it. I'm muting.
So if I understand you correctly, you're writing the code or your team is writing code and then you're putting your code through ChatGPT for a review, or is it vice versa?
Yes, yeah. I always do the code reviews frequently to give the standard coding feature in the team. Whenever you review, in a mood to review anything, even on a document, if something is written right way, you can check on, and the same case is for codes. It will suggest you the right code snippet also.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing, right? I think that sounds like an amazing way to even make your code possibly
Yeah, it's like a
more
mentor.
efficient.
Yeah, it's like a mentor, and you can use it as a mentor if you want to. If you are reading something, you want clarification on your readings. You can go ahead with the ChatGPT.
Excellent. I love that. A way for us
It
to be
also
more
is very good.
productive.
It's also very good, Michelle, at summarizing things. So let's say you have a long article that you don't really have the time to read. You can upload that article and say, give me back the top 10 bullet points of the, content of this article, et cetera, or give me a one paragraph or a two paragraph summary of this article, et cetera. So really for time saving and efficiency, that I think is one of the biggest and easiest hacks to do right away. I've recently experimented with using it to craft responses to emails. And I'll still personalize it a little bit, but the cool thing is ChatGPT, when I've done this a few times, often added something to the email that I probably wouldn't have thought of to add on my own. So it's really great for giving you the kind of extra insight into something. And again, I'm not cutting and pasting its email responses verbatim. I'm taking that as my first draft, adding some stuff to it, cleaning it up, personalizing it, and then hitting send. But it still saves me a lot of thinking time in terms of how to craft my response.
Excellent. Yeah, I've heard a lot of people using it as a way to, yeah, kind of fill in the blanks and help them think and identify things that they hadn't thought of. So that's super cool. It's almost like getting feedback, right? When you're just like brainstorming with somebody, you could be brainstorming almost with Chat GPT, which I think is pretty invaluable.
Yeah, and there was a comment in the chat that's just important to remember. You know, just because it's fast and it comes off authoritative doesn't mean it's right, and it is wrong, a percentage of the time if you're asking for facts and things like that. So you definitely want to make sure you're comfortable that the information it's giving you is accurate, and you probably still don't want to use it to rely on any, very sensitive decisions or decisions that could affect your financial without vetting the information and making sure that you're comfortable that it's accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I've read it's not extremely current, meaning if you're looking for late breaking information, it's probably not the best thing to rely on. So, I think it pretty much discloses all this actually right on the interface, which is good. All right, Jeff, we have Gideon on the stage. Gideon, we'd love to hear your experience, your hacks, like your thoughts on Chat GPT, please.
Okay, good evening. Can you hear me?
Hey, Gideon, we're having trouble understanding you. There's a lot of noise and we can't hear you. All right, let's go to Jarvis. I love your little. All right. All right. So, Jeff, yeah, let's talk like about other uses. So I'm going to throw up another hack that I've just seen that I'm very excited to try. And that is, I've heard and seen on some blog posts that you could actually ask ChatGPT to write an Excel spreadsheet formula for you. So you could just literally like explain what you're trying to do and get a formula written, which for me is, sounds amazing. I use Excel a lot.
That's a really great hack because those formulas can be pretty complicated. But again, make sure you test the formula afterwards and you know are comfortable that it's completely accurate. But I think we're going to continue to find lots of new ways. I mean, this is literally this thing was birthed to the public probably just about a month ago, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago. And I heard yesterday that they already have 100 million daily active users on ChatGPT, which is pretty amazing. And I think it went from 0 to 1 million registrations in the first few hours of its launch. So it's becoming one of the fastest growing technology products ever introduced in terms of the widespread adoption and use. And I think it also has captured the zeitgeist faster than anything in recent memory. All of a sudden, you're not really hearing as much about Web3, and you're not really hearing too much about the crypto crash anymore. Really, all everyone's talking about is AI, OpenAI, ChatGPT. How it's going to impact search, Google's response. It's really taken over the public's mind, and not just in the tech world. That's what's really interesting. There's a lot of people and a lot of publications talking about it that aren't typically the publications and people talking about tech companies or talking about technology. It's really struck a nerve with humanity, right? In many ways, which I think anyone who's been a fan of science fiction, you've probably read many stories, read many books, seen many movies where there's always an evil AI at some point that takes over and causes havoc for humanity. So I think we've all been wondering when this day would come, and it seems like we've crossed over to the other side now. I think there's no turning back. One way or another, AI is going to be permeating many aspects of our daily lives.
Yeah, and listening to the news, of course, it's all over the news, right? It is already the next big thing. And I believe it was Bill Gates who said, "This is the biggest thing since the internet." And I was thinking about that statement, Jeff, and I thought, it's interesting because I think we are where we are being able to leverage, or benefit from a tool like this because actually of the internet. It's because of all this vast amount of data that's been accumulating for decades. So it's interesting to see the progression of things. And I think it's really fascinating times and a lot of opportunities for a lot of folks to start new businesses and just maybe be more productive. What do you think about that, Jeff?
Oh, absolutely. And I think obviously it wouldn't have occurred without the internet. And it's the fact that the internet has been able to collect so much information and data that's given us the ability to train these AIs in a way that wouldn't have been possible, pre-internet, right? You couldn't be taking dictionaries and books and libraries and spoon feeding the content of all those books to an AI without the internet. So the internet is critical. I also think we're going to see a lot of changes, and it's happening already quickly, with how we interface with ChatGPT. Um, Obviously, talking to an AI is the future, one way or another. We have Alexa and Siri and all these things, but right now, it's not giving you as detailed answers as ChatGPT. But that's coming. I've actually taken to using voice to text to use ChatGPT when I'm on my phone because it's very easy to do. So I'll actually talk my prompts to ChatGPT instead of typing them. And I find that to be a great experience, and it won't be long before. And there's ways to hack this now where you can have the responses read to you aloud, and there are many AI powered voices now that do text to speech almost imperceptibly good. And in fact, tools like Descript and other things, which is powered by OpenAI's technology, lets you learn. It can learn your own voice, and you can actually type new text and have it spoken back to you in your voice. So, deep fakes. It's going to be harder and harder to determine whether something is real or generated. So interesting times ahead on all these fronts. But I do think the way we interface, talking to an AI and getting those responses in different forms, I think is the next big step that we'll see very soon.
Absolutely. So we have someone on the stage, Sala. We'd love to hear your hacks and your thoughts on how entrepreneurs can use ChatGPT. Are you there, Sala? Um, you're on mute, the little right button on the bottom of your screen. All right. So let's go to Colin if he can talk. I see Colin was able to join this session, and I know he's a big fan of ChatGPT too. So, Colin, is there any thoughts that you could impart on us about hacks and just really cool things that folks can do with ChatGPT?
Okay, well, talk about throwing me into the fire here. Yeah, I appreciate you covering the session today. It's an exciting topic. We're at a historic moment in time, and I believe that this AI technology, if a startup uses it correctly, it can really help accelerate their growth. One thing I've seen a few examples of that in the startups inside our incubator. One of them is in customer service, and you may have touched upon this already, but I'll just maybe re-emphasize it if you've already touched upon it. But the fact is, you can now utilize offshore labor, which can be a fraction of the price of Western labor. You can utilize that labor for support and for other activities, and you're able to run their scripts um, through the Chat GPT, and it really makes it a lot more professional and clean. But I think what I like the most about it is when you add a positive tone. So you'll, run a response to an email, or if you're developing an FAQ or a script or whatever, and then you said, well, now please make it more positive. And I believe that the more that we can make our language more positive with our customers, the higher the satisfaction rate of our customers. And we actually had a speaker on, I don't know if you remember, Michelle, George Walther, who was on this show about 2 to 3 months ago, and he did a whole session on Power Talk, how we can communicate. And now we could literally automate being positive. And now I know that almost sounds a little too fake, but the reality is, if we can do that, that can help increase our customer satisfaction. And it's institutionalized within the organization. So I'll leave it at that for now. I don't know if anyone's touched upon customer service and how we can improve it, not only based on efficiency, but based on positive reaction.
Yeah, I love that use case, whether it be for chat that customer service is doing or whether it be for emails. It's an incredible tool for that, especially if you speak another language. And on that subject, I'm going to bring up another one because we're keeping a list here and we're going to include these things in the blog post. Is translating and summarizing at the same time. So a lot of us, probably live or work with people in different countries or speak different languages. I don't know of any other tool that could actually do this. Obviously, there's Google Translate, but ChatGPT could actually take an agreement. Like for us, we dealt heavily in China and the company we previously ran. Sure, I could just like try to translate through Google Translate, but I could never summarize. So I think that's an extremely powerful tool, whether it be personally or for business. And I love the summarization capabilities,
Yeah, not only
Jeff.
that, Michelle, but you can it'll do more than just translate, and it'll create. So my dad is an attorney, still practicing at age 87. Good for him. And he has a client that he's had for 30 years that's based in the Netherlands. So they're Dutch. And this has been his client. He's been to Amsterdam to visit them many times, but all of his communications with them have been in English. And when I was visiting him in December, I was just playing with ChatGPT. It had just sort of come out right around that time, towards the end of December. And he was getting ready to write a letter to his client in Amsterdam to thank them for their help with a particular case that was settled. And I said, let's use ChatGPT and do it in Dutch. And instead of him writing a letter and then translating it, we simply said to ChatGPT, write a letter in Dutch to so and so, thanking them for their participation in the such and such case and their contribution towards the positive results, right? So that's all we told it. And it wrote a fairly detailed, beautiful letter in Dutch, saying a lot more than that, adding some legal terms, adding some stuff that made sense. And my dad just cut and pasted that and sent it to his client by email. And the client was blown away because in 30 years, they had never received any communications from my dad in Dutch, let alone a properly structured letter. And that's the thing where AI versus straight translation makes a big difference, because if you just do straight translation, it's typically trying to translate what you wrote, and your grammar in English may not really match the way things are said in that other language. When you ask the AI to compose something from scratch in another language, it's going to use proper grammar and some expressions that wouldn't have translated well from your English necessarily if you wrote the letter first. So it's a powerful tool for not just straight translation, but for creation in other languages as well.
Yeah, that's an amazing way. I mean, just think about that, right? You're doing business development or just trying to develop some kind of relationship. That's amazingly powerful. I agree with you, and that's so cool that your, I'm going to say, elderly father did that. That's how you form true business relationships or even personal. Just really, addressing people in their own language.
There's a good question in the chat, Michelle, too, whether or not there's an app available for ChatGPT. To my knowledge, there is not a mobile app. So if you see ChatGPT apps in the Google Play Store and elsewhere, they're probably not, unless if they're not from OpenAI, the company, they're probably not authorized or legit, or they just capitalizing potentially on the interest in the name. But that said, there are a lot of apps and companies that are integrating ChatGPT into their product, using the API that's available. So, Colin has got a startup with his daughter that's doing that. So some of those apps could be legitimate apps that are utilizing ChatGPT for other services. And part of that has to do with being able to train the AI for a specific vertical or for a specific purpose. So right now, to my knowledge, and I'm certainly not an expert in this, I'm not sure if anyone's an expert at this stage, but to my knowledge, ChatGPT in its public form is considered kind of a general AI. So it's got a lot of knowledge about a lot of general topics, but you can train the AI in more specific topics. So someone could take the API and train it in legal terms, for example, and make their version of the AI more well versed in legal terminology and case law, blah, blah, blah. So you can come in, Colin, I don't know if you want to talk about it, but Colin and his daughter and Michelle are working on a project where they're training it to write better poetry, for example. So you'll see a lot of iterations of ChatGPT that are being specialized for a particular use case, which I think is a really good thing because it'll make it much more powerful in that specific area. I don't know, Colin, if you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing.
No, absolutely. I think it's interesting in how it also can help with creativity. The case of my daughter and I, with the help of Michelle and Startup Club, we were able to launch poemai.club. Sorry, .com. Jeez, we have .club for the Instagram. Geez, I'm still saying .club, but poemai.com. And what it does is, based on a tone that you set or whatever, and certain questions that are asked of you, it'll generate a poem. And we've tested different questions, different queries, different ways of doing it, and figured out this is one of the best ways of actually producing that poem. Now, the business model is to sell the poems on Canvas. So we use Dali to create some original art pieces, and we've listed those, put those up on Shopify, and it's just sort of like an early stage project, but we're making some progress there. What's
Actually,
interesting about yeah, go ahead.
yeah, they're on giftai.com.
Yeah, you can go to poemai.com, write the poem, and then when you click through, it'll send you an email, and you click through to giftai.com to actually purchase the poem on Canvas. But what's interesting about creativity is I had a conversation with a comedian. I told him about ChatGPT, and we actually were talking about different routines. And I said, "Well, have you ever done a routine with the smartphone in the washroom?" And he said, "No, I haven't." So let's just try that. So we asked ChatGPT to give us a comedy routine about using the smartphone in the washroom. And I was absolutely amazed at the quality of the humor and how it described like only things that a human who actually has done that, taken a smartphone to a restroom, has actually done that, would experience the things that they talk about in that routine. And then he said to me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all my routines and put them through ChatGPT and see if I can make them better. So idea generation, whether it's writing poetry or whether it's writing comedy routines, idea generation is something that we can start to use AI for. It's not just how to translate or make something sound professional, but it can also help generate ideas for our startup. And I think that's where it's really, in some ways, it's freaky, but I think in some ways, that's where it can be very powerful for a startup.
Absolutely. There was another good question in the chat. Juan asks, do you give ChatGPT a background on the question? If so, to what level of detail? So that's a really good question, Juan. And I think in my experience, you can feed it a lot of information and then it'll use that. So if you wanted to, write a proposal, you can give it as much information as you want. I want you to write a proposal for the building of a new playground and I want the playground to have 3 different size swing sets and a sandbox, and then come up with 3 other things that a child's playground should have that are safe for kids to play in, and then have it come up with that plan, right? And then you can modify it thereafter. So I've seen it in use where you can give it quite a bit of detail and then it'll incorporate that detail into its response. And then you can, if you don't give it clear instructions, though, it may just spit back just the detail you give it. So you want to be sure to also prompt it to add to it or elaborate on it, or using these 3 ideas as a starting point, write a paper about such and such. So I think you should try to give it as much detail as you can if you're using it to help you create a first draft of something or create some document, as opposed to asking it for information that you don't already know. Hope that made sense.
Yeah, it really can help fill in some blanks, some areas that you might not have seen in terms of creativity. But I've got a couple of other ones. And please raise your hand. I mean, we'd love to hear your ideas, your experiences, your thoughts. So here's another one. And if anybody's interested in seeing the kind of companies that are using ChatGPT, one thing you can do is actually look on their website. They actually have a venture fund, and they are actually funding companies that are using their core technology. So that's worth checking out. We mentioned one which was Descript, but there's several others that they've already helped to fund. So there's opportunities beyond using the technology, but for funding as well if they find it to be something worthwhile. So here's another one, and I have seen companies talking about doing this. It's extracting data from copy. So if you say you're an attorney or accounting or whatever it is, you could dump data into it, right? Some copy into it and say, pull out the numbers in their descriptions, and it will go through the document and literally pull it out. And I think it pulls it, dumps it back to you as a JSON object, is what I've heard. So that's really cool when you think about folks or businesses that have to process, maybe some kind of application form, or maybe it's an attorney and they're just going through tons of, evidence submitted. So that would be another application for ChatGPT. How about you, Colin? Are you thinking of anything else here that we're not talking about that folks can think about?
Well, yeah, you know, we did this a few weeks ago. Asked about, we had a marketing expert on stage, and we asked her to come up with sort of a tagline for Startup Club, and then we went just to ChatGPT and we said, come up with 5 Startup Club taglines, and to our surprise, ChatGPT delivered, I think, won that little battle. And they actually, one of the ones that they came up was fuel your startup journey. I thought that was very interesting. I just, while you were talking, Michelle, I decided to take it a step further and just went to ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT to suggest meta tags for Startup Club. So again, we don't even have to be an expert in a particular area. We can just learn. All we need to know is what questions to ask it. We need to know enough to know what questions to ask, to have it help us build that website or have it help us promote that website. And when we achieve that, that can make a big difference for the startup.
Absolutely. And in fact, I used it for title tags for one of our websites, which I just mentioned earlier, Gift AI. So we'll see how it performs. I'm very interested to see if it chose good ones, right? So I'm looking here thinking, what are other uses? So another use is asking it to recommend something to you. You could ask it to recommend a movie, a book, and obviously, the more specific you are in your preference, the more specific it's going to get of a return for you. So, just questions, but also like, I'm looking for a really cool movie to go to that's new, that's science fiction and they're on Mars. It will throw back recommendations to you. So I find that useful because I think, half of what we do, probably more actually, on the internet is, trying to do research. So it is a very efficient, effective tool, so far as we know, to help you do research on any vast amount of subjects. So that's a great time saver and a great supplement to just your standard research or discussions that you might be having with somebody. Like I was saying earlier, it's almost like you could do a brainstorming session. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs love to do brainstorming, but I think it would be really cool, right? You've got your business ideas or a product idea. You could even run your own little brainstorming session right with Chat GPT.
Yeah, and I know that within our incubator, we've been talking about a project to support Startup Club. We acquired the domain Business Plan AI, and uh, what we're trying to do is figure out a way so it would be very easy for a startup to simply enter in fields, certain information, list of competitors, et cetera, et cetera. And this bot would go and assemble essentially a full business plan. And how far we go with that project, I'm not certain, but I know that's one area with or without a bot, if you can go to ChatGPT and say, okay, here are my competitors. Can you do a competitive analysis of them in comparison to my own company? Uh, can you uh, suggest, um, I don't know, like all the components of a business plan? Can you develop a SWOT analysis for this particular company? And at least it gets the process started, right? It moves you a little bit forward in setting up of that business plan. So I could see even in that early stage of a business, of a startup, people using ChatGPT as well. Now we got a couple people on stage, a couple of brave souls, because we're running
Ye-
out of ideas, I think, right, Michelle?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of ideas. I think everyone just needs to get in there and start using it. But I saw a question in the chat. Somebody said, is there an API, a developer API? And the answer is yes, there absolutely is a developer API. And there are a lot of softwares and apps already coming onto the market very, very quickly using ChatGPT as well as other AI technologies and using them as a core to their offerings. So without further ado, Dimple, love to hear your hack, your ideas, your thoughts on Chat GPT. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle, and great conversation, you guys. So, yeah, I'm absolutely loving ChatGPT. Been using it for a couple of weeks. One of the things that I've found that it does really well is to help you plan out future podcast episodes. So, I have a couple of shows, but I want to launch one or two new shows, in Q1 and Q2. So, I had ChatGPT give me, like very catchy titles for future episodes for a new show I'm launching. And then if I wanted it to even provide more bullet points and more details, it was able to do that. And I have to say, like, I mean, I was impressed because for me to even, and I'm a marketer, like, I'm a marketing strategist, but for me to sit there manually and come up with titles that good would have taken hours to do. And even then, I would have to say, like you guys said earlier, ChatGPT would win. And I think the key is really understanding how to use it and what prompts to give it. So the better you can get at providing prompts that are going to get you the output that you want. And I think that takes a little bit of like playing around with it and skill. But the more detailed you are, the more specific its response is going to be for you. I love the fact that, there definitely is a big difference between using that and using Google. If I go to Google and look for information, it takes forever because I have to click on different websites to see if that information is actually relevant to what I'm looking for or not. And half the time it's not, and I have to go to three different websites to curate information and put it in one place manually myself. Whereas with ChatGPT, it's going to gather all that information and provide it, to me. And then if I say, well, can you expand on that? I want to know more about this specific topic. It will do that. So that's one way I've used it. We've also had some fun rooms on Clubhouse where we have made songs in ChatGPT about people on Clubhouse and like rap songs and just funny songs and it's been like actually lots of fun. Like we just had so many laughs. So you can use it for entertainment. Obviously, you can use it for business, but I mean, I absolutely love it.
See, Dimple, I just did what you said. I went to ChatGPT and I asked the question, suggest show titles for serial entrepreneur secrets revealed. Came up with 10 show titles. Number one, From Idea to Launch, Secrets of Serial Entrepreneurs. Number two, The Entrepreneurial Mindset, Insight from Serial Entrepreneurs. Number three, and it goes on and on. And they've got actually quite a lot of good ones here. Number seven was From Failure to Fortune, The Secrets of Serial Entrepreneurial Resilience. Um, the Power of Networking, Secrets from Serial Entrepreneurs. The Road to Entrepreneurial Success. It's unbelievable. Like it gets the mind thinking. Oh, that could be a good show. Yeah, we could develop something like that, even if we just picked one of them. So what a great suggestion.
Yeah, thank you. And Colin, like, so what I'm doing is like I'm reverse engineering everything because normally I would just say, okay, these are the episodes I want to talk about, and this is what I'm going to do. But I literally have over 20 episodes planned out for a brand new show. But the way, like, if you notice, like, some of the words, like, that you read off, it's using words that are really powerful and captivating, and I feel like they are words that draw the audience in. And there's whole art and science of titling things, right? Like when you think about email subject lines, like how are you going to get someone to open up an email? And I think it's the same concept when it comes to a podcast. How are you going to get someone to actually listen to that episode, or that particular episode, right? And I think it has to appeal to the person. And I think ChatGPT is making these titles, very appealing. So it's absolutely amazing for that. I mean, I've trusted it for a lot of things, Colin, but I feel like that is one of the things that it's done superior. Like it's been really, really outstanding at.
It's a great suggestion, and we're going to try that. Thanks so much, Dimple. That was great. And we have a couple other folks on the stage. Let's give them some time before we wrap up the show. Michael, over to you, Michael. What are your Chat GPT hacks or observations? Tell us what you're doing.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. I'm hoping that y'all might be able to enlighten me about ChatGPT because I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I have a lot of side hustles right now, and one of them it's a new startup course that's on mastermind.com, and I'm wondering what I try to do is help parents with young children who are going through a divorce. And I'm just curious to know if this chat GPT would be able to help me in some kind of way to make people known about my course. Because I'm thinking about starting a room here on Clubhouse. I've got different ideas, starting a group on Facebook, Instagram, maybe LinkedIn. So I'm just wondering, have any of you had any kind of success with Chat GPT, and do you think it might be able to help me, get the word out about my course?
Here's my suggestion for you. Just think of it like you've asked us these questions, Michael. I would say ask ChatGPT actually the questions that you're asking us, because it definitely will come back to you with responses on how it can help you with your courses. And if your goals, think about what your goals are. Like, gosh, how am I going to get people to, you know pay for my course, or whatever it is, or to know about my course. I would suggest that you ask that directly to Chat GPT, and it will come back with responses. And if, for example, it says, I'm making this up, right? If it says write a blog post, right, or do a podcast, then you could do things like what we've been discussing and what Dimple suggested to help you execute on that much quicker and much more efficiently, and maybe even better.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, though, it's not going to do the work for you. So, in other words, you can't ask ChatGPT, to my knowledge, excuse me, like go and post on Twitter or go and find me an audience of such and such people. It'll give you suggestions of what you can do to grow your audience, but you'll have to do the work. But it could give you some ideas. It might say, put together an email list and this is how you can build your email list, blah, blah, blah. But it's not going to do that work for you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your input. I really do appreciate it.
I think where it can help you a little bit more with some of the work is if you've established, in order for you to succeed, you may need to establish yourself as an expert in the industry. And that means, on Facebook and with groups and whatnot, and get blog articles published. Um, and, here's an example. We're working on an article for Forbes right now that pretty much we wrote completely on our own. I did the initial draft, and I had an editor um, look at it and edit it. Then I took it to ChatGPT, and I literally had ChatGPT edit all of it because I'm not a professional writer, right? So you can, in some ways, you can eliminate. In some ways, okay, you can eliminate the editor editorial and actually produce content much quicker because you're not focusing on the hyphens and the dots and the actual um, the actual uh, structure of the documents. And I know a lot of people may enjoy doing that, but for me, it's very time consuming. So I find in some ways you could produce a lot more blogs faster by having it do the editing for you. And also, if you needed to add some form of tone to it, like humor or whatever, that can actually be used as well.
Thank you, Colin and Michelle and Jeffrey. Thank you so much for your input. I don't want to sound arrogant or cocky or anything like that, but this course, I am absolutely an expert on this because I'm involved in the self-education industry, and what I am teaching and educating parents on, I absolutely went through this myself when I was younger. So I am in all actuality, I am definitely an expert on this subject.
So I mean, the world just needs to know that, right? You
Well,
need to
thank
get those
y'all.
articles published, right?
I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
I said you need to get those articles published so that you can build a bit of a funnel. Like you need to get your content, your ideas, your thought, your expertise published by blogs, and I've no doubt you'll do well.
Yeah, well, this course that I'm doing, it's an audio course because I was thinking about writing like an ebook, and a friend of mine said most people nowadays are doing audiobooks and they would prefer to hear someone's voice. So I just decided to do this first course, and it's an all audio course. So, but thank you again.
Excellent.
I
Excellent. We
really do
wish you the
appreciate it.
best. Yeah, we wish you the
Thank you.
best on it, and come back and tell us how it goes. Thank you,
I
Michael.
will. And y'all have a good weekend.
Likewise. All right. Let's go over to Danny. What are your hacks, thoughts? Tell us what you're doing with Chat GPT or your questions.
Sure thing, sure thing. Thank you, Michelle, Jeffrey, and Colin for this space. I normally hang out in the audience, just listening in, and while I'm working. But I had to jump on the invitation to come up on stage when I heard one of you gentlemen say, I don't know which one of you mentioned, but when you mentioned that soon we're going to see voice and the responses that we get from GPT-3 via voice. And I jumped all over that because just last night we were able to do just that. And I work with a team of people who are smarter than me, and I get to witness, the speed at which this is developing, right? So um, to further illustrate this in just a few seconds, let me just try to paint this picture. So most of us, or most of you, or when you are exploring ChatGPT, we were going through the actual interface on the website, right, on a desktop, right, but not so much on mobile, right? So a couple of weeks ago, we were able to integrate ChatGPT with Facebook Messenger. So I've been working with Messenger bots for a number of years now, and with some high caliber clients. But when this came about, when this hype came about, we wanted to explore where can we push this further, right? The platform that I'm using it with is ManyChat, and we were able to connect it to the GPT-3 API inside OpenAI.com, right? And so the actual interface now becomes a Facebook Messenger conversation, right? So I can deploy this for clients in their own Facebook fan pages where the bot responds anything you wanted to ask, right? Basically, as we were just discussing. But now, just last night, we were able to connect it with, and I have to shout out my friend here, Jeff Falali, for sharing a really cool tool last week that I was able to dig a little bit into. The name of this tool is called Synthesia, right? So I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Synthesia. And that also has an open API where now the responses we ask um, GPT via the Facebook Messenger interface is being responded to us via an avatar with a real human face and a real human voice in an oral format, right? So I just wanted to mention that when we say, yeah, in the future we're going to see that the future is coming faster than we think. And just last night we developed this small but significant step. Now these prompts are being responded not just via text on an interface on a desktop, but now on Facebook Messenger on your mobile device, very very precisely with a human like avatar face, but a human voice as well. Just wanted to share that. My name is Danny, and I'm done.
Hey, Danny or Jeff or anyone, what was the name of that movie? It was called Her, I think. And he had a relationship with the AI. Do you
That's
remember
the
that?
name.
Was that it?
I
Her?
believe that was the name. Yeah, I think so.
We're getting closer to that, aren't we? Never thought about that until now.
Well, there's already AI dating platforms. I was reading about one actually yesterday or this morning, where you can choose an avatar of someone that is attractive to you and then have conversations, similar to what you would do with the real person if you were starting to date them and just, swipe right and get a virtual boyfriend or girlfriend that you can talk to anytime and chat with just like you would a person you met. Obviously, there'll be limitations to that relationship that you wouldn't have on the human side, but I won't get into that. But it's all these things we're talking about are happening and happening fast.
It'd be horrible if you got rejected by an AI, an AI relationship.
Yeah, but it's interesting because the notion, I mean, the notion of interacting with an AI and finding it to be therapeutic, just having those conversations has been around for 40 years, probably 50 years. Because Colin, you may be old enough or maybe not, but I'm certainly old enough to remember in the early days of the personal computer, there was something called Eliza. You can Google it. There's a good Wikipedia entry about it. Eliza, and Eliza was a chatbot, one of the earliest chatbots. And you can type a question, and it would respond with a typewritten answer, and it was built to be kind of a Freudian psychologist. And a lot of what a psychologist does sometimes is kind of repeat back, what you say, and then ask you how you feel about it. And this Eliza was programmed to do just that. And people would spend hours having so-called conversations with Eliza, and it was very rudimentary, especially compared to ChatGPT. But even in its rudimentary form, people said they felt better when they talked to it, that they got value from the interactions, even though they were fully aware that this is just some kind of a chat bot, mostly spitting back what you're feeding it in. So we've always had sort of an acclamation to be open to this type of relationship with a chat being, with the computer, etc. I find myself, believe it or not, thanking ChatGPT when it gives me a good response. I do a prompt, it gives me something back. I say, thanks, that's great. And it typically will respond, you're welcome. I'm happy I was able to help. So it's very easy for us to fall into conversations, at least for me, with something, even though I know it's an AI or a computer.
Excellent. All right. On that note, we're at the end of our hour, but let's get to Sandra. Sandra is a marketing expert, took a look at her profile there. Sandra, would love to hear your thoughts on ChatGPT and how you're using it or suggestions, hacks for others in the room. Sandra.
Thank you so much, Michelle. What a great space and great conversation. Yeah, I definitely have a lot of things I use it for. Especially being in marketing, creating marketing plans, creating content calendars. But one thing that I'm just using it for today, which, well, between today and yesterday, is something that I just started a challenge with one of our community groups. And it's a video challenge, right? A 30-day video challenge. And one of the hardest things is for people to come up with video topic ideas. So I just popped in there, can you create a video script idea for my reels on? And then you put in whatever subject you want to do your reels on or your videos on. And it spit out so many clear ideas that are logical. And I think it will, and I'm going to create a video about me doing this right on ChatGPT so that I could send it to the community so that they can learn how to do it and get real and more familiar with ChatGPT overall. So I think that it is limitless, the possibilities. I mean, we see a lot of rooms that people are creating books and all different types of things. This is integrated into everything that I'm doing. One of my sites I use Softer IO, which I love because it integrates with Airtable. So that is such a streamlined integration that we have. ChatGPT is integrated into the IO website. So I don't even have to leave to go onto ChatGPT. It's doing that right inside the software itself. Not to mention Canva. If anybody uses Canva, Canva has integrated chat. So this is such a game changer for all of us to help maximize the quality of work that we put out, the speed of the work that we put out, but it is absolutely limitless of what you can ask it. And like Dimple had said, it is all on the prompts. How are you asking the question? The moment that you shift, you can write the same question. The moment that you shift that question, a different response is going to come out. So the more you get familiar using it and talking to it and speaking to it, sometimes I'm like, hi, chat, I'll start it off. I don't know if this thing's going to turn evil one day. So I'm trying to be kind to it. So I just say, hi, chat, can you help me with something today? And then I go into my question. And then if I needed to reference anything or reference copy that I wrote or rewrite a blurb that sometimes I think is the hardest thing, like just a couple sentences that just summarizes something. And I'm like, okay, I got to get a blurb for that. So yeah, I take them together, put them together, but sometimes it takes, like Dimple said, it takes longer to produce the level of quality work that you are going to get in literally seconds from this platform. So creating blurbs and little short script paragraphs that you need to highlight things is gold. And then I wrote the introduction to the 30-day challenge. And of course, I'm multitasking. So sometimes it's hard to get it finessed perfectly. And I dropped it into ChatGPT and I said, can you help me rewrite this for this reason? And I put the reason in there and then it spit out gold. I'm like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted to say. And it took my copy, my content, my community, my target, my message, and it created this beautiful blurb that is just completely ideal. I can't wait to send it out. I have the email open now, getting ready to push it out. So I think this is such a game changer platform. We got to get used to using it more. Jeffrey, you scared me on this whole AI companion thing. I mean, we see it in movies all the time, but wow, this is really going to be a thing because I think people do find some type of companionship, right? Speaking to something that is going to answer back in some way. So I could see how this could be certainly, I remember back in the day when it was the dial-up and we found AOL groups and we were talking to people that we didn't know across the world and across the country, and that was in so profound then that I think even just communicating with somebody on across the world was interesting then. I can't imagine now you have an instant system that is communicating with you. I could see how vulnerable people can really get attached emotionally to some of these systems, but hopefully none of us do, and we can separate that out. But other than that, use it for your business, use it to grow, use it to be and become and learn and find ways to get those big dreams accomplished, right? And I think this system and all the others that are like it are just a great tool, and I'm excited. Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle, and everybody.
What a great way to finish a great program. I'll let you take it from here, Michelle. But it was really enjoyed listening to everybody here on stage, and this is not going away either. We're going to keep talking about how Chat GPT and DALI and Bard and other AI technologies can help us accelerate our startups. This is going to be an exciting decade.
Couldn't agree more. And thank you for all the members that came up to the stage and shared your wisdom. We really appreciate it. So, I just want to mention one thing that I'm starting to do because I'm finding there's so many cool programs and apps that people are building on top of this technology that are even more useful. Like create an instant website, and there's specific ones like copy AI and editing, etc. So here at Startup Club, we're starting to make a list of all those technologies that we'll be able to share hopefully in a couple of weeks. But first, thank you for joining us. We're here every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And please follow everyone who's been on the stage if you enjoyed what they had to say. And have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next Friday. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Michelle.